Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be ranking the palettes I have tried so far in the year of 2024, so the past couple of months, and I actually have 20 palettes to rank, which is so many, and that's like a lot of palettes. So of course I haven't been able to do dedicated videos to all of these palettes, so I really wanted to kind of give you my thoughts on these, especially if you're into indie makeup brands. I have been trying so much more indie lately, and I feel like the mainstream brands that are at Sephora and Ulta really haven't been putting out that many eyeshadow palettes, because right now what's trending is just like swipe on and go eyeshadow, or just very natural, no makeup. So there hasn't been a lot of eyeshadow launches, but the indie brands have been coming out with so many good palettes, and honestly they have better formulas too. So since there's been so many releases lately, I'm hoping this ranking is helpful to you to kind of see, with everything that's been out, what is really worth it. Now I did want to make a disclaimer that I do not think any of these palettes are bad. All of the palettes I tried this month are good quality, but I had to kind of be picky with this ranking, and a lot of it is based on colors that I wear the most often and that I like. So sure, it's a little bit biased, but also I'm going to tell you guys about the formulas and the price points in that too. I do have a lot of discount codes with these brands as well, so if I have one, I'll throw it up on the screen if it's something you're interested in checking out. But let's go ahead and get started with this ranking. So starting at the bottom at number 20, I decided to put this Odens Eye palette. It was from their, I think it's the Legendary Diversa series that just launched a little bit ago, and this is the Spring Dragon palette. And I did put this one in the bottom because it is more of a very light pastel palette. You do have one kind of deeper shade in there to build some depth, but overall, pastels in general just are not my favorite for me. Like, I could just have one pastel palette in my collection with a rainbow of colors and I would be happy. But yeah, I don't really like rainbow palettes, and pastels kind of go a little bit rainbowy for me. So it's just not a kind of color story I gravitate towards the most, or I use mostly in springtime. And this one was just very much on the lighter side when it comes to pastels. And sometimes I like something a little bit richer and deeper. So the quality of this palette is great, but mostly this one ranks in the bottom just for color story and how often I personally would use this palette. Next, number 19 goes to Colourpop, their Lost in Love palette. Now, I really thought this was cute and I enjoyed it, but in terms of how much I would use this, I think it wouldn't be very much. I mean, it's very kind of orange and pink is what you get with this, and sure, you can definitely build some depth with these colors, but when it comes to Colourpop, even though I am a Colourpop lover and they are more affordable, their shadows just don't always have the same quality as some of the higher priced indie brands that I try, so I can't really put them above those palettes if those palettes perform better, no matter how much I love the brand and will still use this. But I think it is a great option if you're looking for a more affordable price point. But I thought this collection was really cute, but I just don't think I would use like these orange and pink color schemes as often. Number 18, I have the Fantasy Cosmetica Wizard palette. Now, I love this brand, but these are just not my tones. It's very much yellow and blues, and blues is a color that I don't wear a ton. And I will say this yellow and blue in the palette, plus this white, those are all very, very light colors. So I don't think this palette really has a ton of depth in it. It does have some deeper kind of shades on the bottom, but I would like these to be a little bit more mid-tones, I think. I did create a gorgeous look with this though, and I love Fantasy Cosmetica's formula. One of their palettes ranked really high in my best of the year for 2023 palettes, so I have nothing against them as a brand, but this kind of palette is just not really my taste. Number 16 is another Odens Eye. This is their Mighty Monster palette from Annette. The things I like about this is you can kind of make looks going by row, but for me, these colors are definitely all over the place, and I feel like that's kind of the theme of this video, is these are not really tones that I go for the most. I did rank this higher than the other Odens Eye palette because I love these creamy metallics in here. They're so foiled and so pretty on the eyes, but I just haven't loved my looks that I've done with this palette in particular, so it does rank a little towards the bottom. And then number 15 goes to the Nomad New Zealand Stargazing. I think Nomad has a really great formula, especially with their mattes. I think the shimmers just aren't as sparkly as some of the ones I ranked a little higher in this video today. They are branching out a little bit more and doing some multi-chrome shadows, but yeah, I just did not really fall in love with this palette as much as I have some of their other ones. Like their Ghost Town palette from last year was in my top 5 of the whole year. I loved it so much. So I don't think this is a bad palette, but there is definitely a lot that I liked a little bit more. Next up, for number 14, I have another pastel palette. Again, just because I'm not really a fan of pastels, but I did like this pastel palette a little bit more than the Odens Eye. This is the Glamlite Pretty in Pastels palette, which looks like this. I did have some troubles with this shade breaking, so excuse that. I've had to repress it a couple times, but overall I like the color scheme of this pastel palette, and I really like that they added this deeper row here on the bottom, because I find that a lot of pastel palettes just eliminate those deeper shades, and then a lot of like mid-tones and deeper tones can't really wear them. But now we kind of have these added depth colors on the bottom so that you can go darker with your looks, which I tend to like. So I like that that was added in. I do feel like there's a lot that you can do with this palette, but I don't know, the shimmers I didn't feel like wowed me. They didn't have many shifts or just like fun sparkle. They're just like normal metallics in my opinion. So that's why it's kind of ranked towards the bottom on the list. And that was number 15. I might have said 14. Actual number 14 is going to go to the Colourpop Twilight palette. And I ranked this one a little bit higher because I love the theming of this and I really love the color story. But yeah, I would say Colourpop's shimmers and mattes aren't going to compare with some of the indie palettes on the market, of course, but I think they did a pretty good job with this one. They based it off of basically the first movie, so it's very kind of blue tone. We have some fun greens. I did some gorgeous looks with this one. I've enjoyed it. Hopefully if you guys were able to, you caught the restock the other day, because I know they just restocked this after it's been like a month or so. So I know a lot of people have been wanting to get their hands on this, so hopefully you were able to, but I do really enjoy this one. Colourpop's mattes do seem to be on the lighter side and their shimmers just don't have as much oomph as some of the other ones featured. Okay, number 13. This palette literally just came out, but I did try it, so I wanted to include it in this ranking, and this is the Huda Beauty new Creamy palette. This is the Creamy Brown Obsessions palette, which this one is new because the first one I ordered actually had a broken shadow, so they did have to reship me another one, so that's why it doesn't look used, but I have used these a couple of times now. I will say I love the overall concept of these. I love that you can do really quick, easy one and done makeup looks, and they're basically all cream shadows, including the powders. The mattes are a little creamier than the shimmers are, but I love the looks that I can do with these, and it does have a powder setting shade as well. Now, the times I have used these with eye primer and like setting the lid, I don't feel like these last a super long time on the eyes like a powder eyeshadow does, but I mean, it is creams, but I would like to see a little bit more longevity. But also, I've had problems with my eyes the past week, just watering and watering like crazy. So also, the eyeshadows don't hold up in general on me right now, so I feel like I can't give like an ultimate review on this, but in general I just don't think this lasts quite as long on the eyes. But I love the concept of this and the looks that you can do with it. I did rank the Grayish Creamy Obsessions just one spot higher because I do prefer cool tones in general, so I thought this was beautiful. I love that they have the ultra sparkly shade in it, and yeah, since I like the cool tones, that's why this one ranks higher. But it's kind of the same idea where it's an all cream palette that works just fine with a brush. You can blend it out, easy to blend, you can use your fingers, whatever you want to do. It's just kind of a fun new concept. Okay, number 11 goes to the Wicked Widow Beauty Lipstick palette. This was their cute little Valentine's Day launch, which they've been doing these fun kind of themed releases lately, which I really enjoy. I mean, your looks are a little bit limited with this one because it is a smaller palette, but I love pinks and purples. It's some of my favorite colors to wear, so I really love the looks I've gotten with this. Their shimmers are just absolutely stunning. They remind me kind of like Glamlite shimmers, where they have a lot of pretty sparkle and shift to them. The only thing I didn't love about this palette was this gold shade. I really wish that this was just a plain icy pearl or like a silver. I just don't love the gold with the looks I've done with this, and usually it just goes in my inner corner, but eliminating that, I really enjoyed this palette from Wicked Widow. Next, we have an eyeshadow palette from the brand Ensley Rain. This is a brand I've been really wanting to try. I did order their newest Groovy Garden palette too, so I might do a dedicated video to that one when it comes in. in. But I was so excited for this Cold Moon palette from them because, hello, cool tones, their shadows, like just in the palette, look so insanely beautiful. But I feel like there is some drawbacks with this brand as well. First of all, it's really, really expensive. Second of all, shipping can take a long time, and especially if you're doing a pre-order, sometimes that takes more than a couple months just to get to you, which I don't love. I know it's hard for small brands to have enough stock when they first launch, but I just wish they would order more and just keep it on their website so more people can get it without having to do a pre-order, because if you're not on the PR list, it's like impossible to review these palettes because nobody cares after a month passes by. So that's kind of been a little bit more of a drawback for me with the brand, but I really just love these color stories, and I will say I really like their mattes. They're super soft, very blendable. I do wish I could build up a little bit more depth with this one though, because it does stay pretty light. And the thing I find with the Inslee range shimmers, they all have like shifts to them almost, and I kind of wish they would have less shifts, if that makes sense, because a lot of times a lot of their shades shift very green and just look very similar on the eyes. So I don't really love that about the brand. I wish they would cut their palettes in half and include less multi-chromes, maybe more metallics in them. So that's just being very picky, but that's just kind of what I found with the brand, because this could have been a perfect palette for me, but essentially I haven't been obsessed with the looks that I have come out with it, but it's still like a really good quality palette. Number 9, we have the last Odens Eye Legendary Diversa palette, and this is Tina's palette, the Earthwood palette. I was really pleased with her color story. This is very beautiful. It's like spring colors without being pastel. It's more mid-tones, which I personally prefer. So I really have been enjoying this one. You can go a little bit more neutral if you want, but I created such a pretty, more colorful look with this palette. I love this bright green in here. It has so many fun colors, and I'm very inspired by this color story. Really love the quality too. So this one was my favorite of the Legendary Diversa series. Number 8 is going to Natasha Denona. Usually her palettes rank top 5 for me, but this one's a little bit subtle, I will say. It's the My Mini Dream palette. Now this is a great everyday palette. I do have her face palette that I bought, and I'm not including that in this ranking because I didn't know if it was fair to rank a face palette, even though it does have eyeshadows in it. But yeah, I didn't include the Hyper Natural. But this one, it's pretty, but yeah, you get very similar looks out of it. The shimmers in here are a little more subtle too, so it didn't really make top 5 for me this time. I still love the quality and will definitely get a lot of use out of this palette, but I didn't want to rank it above some better metallics we have coming up. Number 7 is another Inslee Rain, and this is the Lands of Enchantment palette. Now, even though I do kind of like the Cold Moon palette color story a bit more, I rank this one higher because it's a little bit more diverse, and I feel like you get a bit more variety with it. And it has these beautiful kind of wintry icy tones, which is when I think I bought it in like December, but I didn't get it till like January. But yeah, this one I feel like you can do a bit more with, and my looks look a little bit more different than they do with the Cold Moon palette. Again, I don't like how huge this is, and I feel like this could have been condensed and sold at a cheaper price. I honestly think that would be a good idea for them to do because a lot of people do complain about their prices, but it's still very beautiful. I cannot deny the quality is really excellent in this palette. Number 6 is a palette I didn't plan on purchasing, but I decided to get it. It's the Glamlite and Betty Boop collection, and I just love Glamlite's formula, so of course I loved it. And originally I wasn't going to buy it because I don't really wear red shadows a lot. It's like my least favorite color to wear, but I've created some stunning looks with this, and Glamlite shadows are just so easy to work with. They have what I love in an eyeshadow formula. They have very pigmented mattes that still blend out like a dream, and their shimmers are very intense, very sparkly. So that is kind of like what I look for in an eyeshadow, and that's what they always deliver for me. So I was really impressed with this one. I did do a short video on this one, wasn't able to do a full video on it, but it is beautiful, and I love that Glamlite stays affordable for a great quality palette. Alright, it's time for the top 5. So number 5 goes to this Danessa Myricks. This is their Groundwork Defining Neutrals palette. I know this launched, I think, end of 2023, but I received it in my Beautylish Lucky Bag this year. So this was new to me. Now, I definitely prefer this formula over the Huda Creamy palette. I feel like this lasts much longer on the eyes, but there's no shimmers in this one. This is an all matte palette, and it's supposed to be meant to use all over the face, and there's a cream shadow and like a powder version of that shadow. I think it would be so fun if they did this and then added just 2 like shimmers in the palette. That would have made it like really nice for me, but I still have not tried this on the face at all. I definitely could use these as cream bronzers though, so I need to do that. I know you can use the powders in your brows. This is not something I normally do, and I feel like the powders are too small for bronzer itself, so I would definitely have to do the cream bronzer. But I think this is a really nice, just like easy all matte palette. I like this better than the Patrick Ta one that came out. I know the all matte palettes have been trending, but I definitely recommend the Danessa Myricks if you're looking for an all matte, just like everyday palette. Number 4 goes to the Unearthly Dreamer palette, and I just love this color story. Like, I have loved my looks so much with this palette. It's the tones I really like, the purples and kind of the berries and some neutrals thrown in. I don't know, Unearthly, they just make such beautiful color stories, and I really like the quality. I do feel like the mattes could be a little deeper. I find them to be very soft, and sometimes they almost blend a little too much where I lose some of the color and I don't get as much depth as I would like. So I kind of wish they had just a little bit more depth to them, but overall I really enjoy these formulas in the brand, and this palette color story is just, it creates some stunning looks. Number 3 is a new brand I haven't talked about yet on my channel, and this is Cosmic Brushes. I've been so curious in trying their palettes, and when I saw they came out with this Winter Wonderland palette, I thought I would give it a try, and I'm so impressed. I am so impressed. I want more from them. Now, I feel like they haven't been launching much lately. They kind of launch stuff slowly, which is fine. But yeah, I need to try some of their older stuff because this formula is stunning, and their mattes are very pigmented. It's similar in color story to the Ensley Rain Lands of Enchantment palette, but I definitely prefer this over the Ensley Rain because I feel like you just get more pigment with these shadows. The Ensley Rain mattes are a little softer, but these just like, they give so much depth to the looks, and the shimmers are so beautiful. It's not overly multi-chrome, not overly glittery. So just in general, I really like this brand, and I can't wait to try more from them this year. Number 2 goes to my Adept Flying Fiddles palette. I have been using this so much lately, and it's seriously my favorite Adept palette yet. And what I love about Adept is they have just like the most sparkly, gorgeous looking shimmers ever. They're so good with their shimmers, and I love that this has more neutral tones in it because a lot of times Adept is very colorful, and a lot of times they don't have very many mattes in their palettes. This one had 4, which is not much, but I think they're still kind of working on their mattes, and they haven't added many to their palettes yet. I think because I think their matte formula could use just like a little bit of improvement, just because sometimes they're a little harder to blend out. But overall, I have just really enjoyed working with this palette, and you guys have complimented me so many times when I'm wearing this. I especially love this bronze shade. Oh my gosh, it's like a neutral bronze, but it has like a touch of gold and pink sparkles in it that just makes it look so unique on the lids. I did a really gorgeous green look actually in a video on my channel, and I've had so much fun with this, but I've just really loved all the looks that I've done with this one, and the fact that it's more neutral, because in general I do prefer a more neutral color scheme because that's what I'm going to reach for the most when it comes to my eyeshadows. I like neutrals with a little color thrown in, like greens or purples. I'm all about that. And then my number 1 palette, which is not a 2024 release, it's actually a 2023 release, but I got it for Christmas, so I have been using the crap out of it so far this year, and it's the BellaBeauteBar Smoky Glam palette. You guys, this is stunning. If you guys watched my top palettes of 2023, BellaBeauteBar was a new brand I tried last year, and I fell in love with their Basic Witch palette, and I think that one ranked number 1 for me because the formula is so good. So my brother actually got me the Smoky Glam for Christmas, and I can't stop putting it down ever since. Now this is definitely a very large palette for me, and I would have liked this to be condensed a little bit more because I'm just not a big palette girl, but just the fact of the formulas here makes this #1. I love their mattes. I like that you can definitely still build up depth, and there is a lot of options here where it does have some lighter mattes, some deeper mattes, and you kind of have a little bit of a warm section, a purple section, and then a very cool gray section. I love these type of colors. So I have gotten so much use out of this, and I really like their metallics. Again, they're not overly glittery. These have a really nice metallic look. I have this one on my eyes right now, and they're just so pigmented, so metallic, which is kind of what I prefer. I don't like my shadows to be too overly glittery, because sometimes then if they don't have a good base, then they just look very similar. So I absolutely love this. If you haven't tried this brand yet, here's your chance to try them, pick them up, because they seriously always rank #1 for me now, and it's just too good. So I can't wait to see what else they come out with this year. I know they've actually had quite a few launches yet, but I'm super picky when it comes to the color schemes that I like, so I haven't picked anything up yet. I know they launched like an all purple palette, which I passed on, and I think they had something else too. I can't quite remember, but this really has just like everything I need in a palette, and it's so beautiful. So that is it for this palette ranking. Let me know if you guys want to see more of these, just because I've had a hard time filming full videos with the palette launches I've been getting. So I've been kind of doing more short videos on them, but hopefully this was helpful in kind of deciding what palettes are worth it, what's worth picking up if you guys have the same taste as me. I know a lot of this video was based on color preferences, but that's truly what is going to determine whether I use a palette the most or not. And usually my rankings are going to be based on how much I'm going to use something, because the more you use it, that's going to be what you're getting your money's worth out of. Like, you can have the best quality rainbow palette ever, but I'm probably not going to reach for it, because that's just how I do my makeup, and we still do colorful looks over here. So thank you guys so much for watching. Again, I'll have everything linked down below with any codes I have for you if there's anything you want to pick up. There's been some amazing launches so far this year, and I can't wait to see what else is coming, because it's just the start of the year. But I'm gonna let you guys go, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.